Yay! I have on Vaishnavi Sundar. I might have said that wrong. I mean, of course, but welcome. It's an honor to have you on.
Thank you
Uh,
very much for having me.
hey, my pleasure. I almost said, "How are you?" And then I was like, mm. I mean, I'm trying not to start this off with like the typical questions. I know you've been doing a lot of interviews. It seems like recently for the past month. I'm not gonna tell the timeline because I don't know, but because that's why I've been like freaking out. Like, God, I feel like she's already answered all the questions, but I'll just try the best I can, and I know we'll just get the combo going. Really, um, I almost don't want to start with like the feministy questions. I don't know. Let's just get into the film because I'm an artist, and the drawings and the person that did the art, I forgot their handle. It's like,
Phantom Pains. Yeah.
yes, thank you. I knew it was two P's. They just so perfectly portrayed the storytelling that you wrote and spoke.
Yeah.
Like, how did you get connected with that artist?
She's a woman. She's a radical feminist, an Indian radical feminist. I bumped into her via Spinster, the social media
Oh,
platform. But this happened almost a year ago, and we've since been in touch. And a lot of things happened in her life, a lot of things happened in mine. And we've constantly talked about how it would be so amazing to work with each other on a project that's close to our heart. And this happened, and I knew from the get go I had to have her on, and this is both our film. And the cool thing about her is obviously she can't not be anonymous because she's got this other life, like most of us. She lives this double life, unfortunately. But the cool thing about her is she's also a friend, and she knows quite a deal about me.
ah,
And we've had conversations about my life even outside of the context of the film and everything. And she's seen some of my pictures when I was young. I just shared it with her for funsies, to just say, see, such a chubby baby, just look
yeah.
at me, look at my hair, it's like so frizzy and all over the place, just somehow she captured all the essence of my childhood picture in not just the face, or if you think about it, it's a very minimalistic animation, but despite that she managed to capture a lot of emotion, and even to the extent of how a child that would look like that might run, because she couldn't have possibly seen it.
Yep.
And yet in every chapter in the beginning you see this little girl running. I don't know, it was she's so full of surprises, and every time she sends me something for me to check and vet and give her feedback, I take a few minutes. I'm like, dude.
I mean, that's the emotion I got. Oh, oh, why is there an echo? That's weird. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I love the minimalistic approach. It's, you don't need a lot of color or to be very descriptive with colors and setting the scene. In a lot of ways, less color and less distraction is much more powerful in film like that. And I just watched some of it again yesterday just to get a refresher, and it's just crazy. I was like, how can this person? It makes sense to me now that you had a close relationship with this person because it was so. It seemed to be so on point. And again, I don't. Now I know that you approved it and was even impressed with it, but it was so amazing. And I would watch an entire film with just that animation. Obviously,
Yeah,
God, it was so
it
emotional.
might might just happen. It might just
Oh,
happen.
I was going to get to that question, like, oh, do you have any projects coming up? The one part that I cried at the film was the end when the little girl turned to the camera and was like, "Where the hell were you during just anything and everything?" And God, I don't know why. It's just one of those things that, like, I mean, I was bawling. It just struck just I don't know, that emotional chord. I'm an emotional person, but I just find that so interesting that that's the one that, yeah, I guess it speaks to my feeling about all this of people not seeing really what's going on, or maybe obviously understanding it. And I know I'm not alone with that feeling of where are these people? Like, how can we be the only ones? And it seems to be like women that have been through trauma or rape and horrible things are the most like outspoken, like you and I. So I'm like, God, does it have to come to women being abused to being this awake? I don't
Yeah,
know. It's just a thought I had.
it's
That was
true.
a
What you're
tangent.
saying is true. This just that spot made me cry many times too, because it's funny because that's what my voice, and that's my idea, and it's something that I've seen over and over and over again. And yet during different parts of the post production, right, when I was doing the recording the voiceover, and when we were going over the voiceover recording to see if we can give it some echo and things like that, every time I choked. Every
God.
single time I choked. I think it stems from the fact that we all share this urgent fear about the future for the children, the girls especially. It doesn't matter what our age is now. We're probably not, not even like old for us to think about the next generation per se. But I'm just terrified for younger girls, given what's being given to them as as empowerment and things like that. So it freaks me out. The only other part that made me really choke was the final part where, if I could go back in time, I would tell my younger self that it is amazing to be a girl, and I would hug her. I'm not maternal at all. I really don't do well with kids. I mean, I can engage them. I'm funny. I can engage them. I'll be like this great aunt or something.
Uh-huh.
But you have to
I know what
give
you
them
mean.
back to the mom.
I know the
Eventually.
exact feeling. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I'm distracted. There's a freaking echo. Anyway. Yeah, the art was obviously amazing. I just can't imagine having to go through that again and having to edit it, like you're saying. I don't know. I'm just kind of running through it in my head right now. I guess that question's already been answered. I mean, did you give the artist total freedom? Like that was their idea. Obviously, you guys talked, and that was they brought you the I guess animation or panels, and you approved it. You basically answered all
Yeah,
my questions, really.
no. I'll tell you. I'll tell you the process. I'm a very I work with the artist a lot, but at the same time, I'm a very generous director. I like to leave the artist alone. And at the same time, I have very specific requests. If something doesn't work out, I have very, very specific requests. And my animator and we struck a chord. And I think after a few rounds of back and forth, I think she exactly figured out what I needed. I must also admit that she and I, if we got together and we had the luxury of time, the things that we can produce will be of a quality that would surprise us, that would surpass us. Because I think we have that potential as a team. And it helps that she's a radical feminist and she's from India. So the things that I say to her are not hearsay. She's not heard about it from somebody. Maybe she's experienced it herself. So there were little things that I wanted, very, very specific things, because I also wanted this to have a part of me in it.
Yeah, and that definitely
Other,
came through. Yeah.
yeah, but other than that, I mean, she perceived the voiceover. The voiceover text was ready. That's the base with which we were working. So the voiceover text, she sort of perceived it and made it her own and brought out certain aspects that was just wow for me. But then other than that, the usual back and forth, just certain things that you want to tinker because it will work, it will not work, and those kind of things. But other than that, working with her is like a dream.
That's amazing. It clearly showed, and I find that with a lot of creative projects, when there's two people that are really like understanding the premise and are just emotionally and spiritually charged, I really find these kind of things kind of create themselves, and then it gets to a point where it's done, and you look back and you're like amazed at it, and how did that happen? And it's just that's why also why I love art, where it seems to be like sometimes things outside source or spirit like takes over and just gets it done. It's just what I find with films that I love, where I'm like I have to guess or imagine that the team that did the film all understood what they were doing, they all got along, and they all respected each other. That's just there's no way a good film that really speaks to people can't have that. Really, what are some of your favorite films growing up? Like, what films spoke to you, and what kind of films did you or do you like to watch? I'm so curious.
Oh, we didn't have cable for the longest period of my life. We had a TV and we had two national channels, and that barely played much of children stuff. There were a few programs that we would look forward to every Friday, because because there's a weekend and no school. So Fridays will have a lot of these movie songs and some cartoons and all of that. So from 4 p.m. on, I'd be glued to the TV, hoping that the connection will be good and we get to watch something. But movies per se, to be very honest with you, I've been a very creative person. I've been on stage for years, and I've read all kinds of Indian children's books growing up. But films is some sort of a bug that bit me much later. And when it did bite me, the kind of and the amount of films that I consumed went beyond Indian cinema or even Hollywood. I have watched films that I cannot pronounce. I have watched films in languages that I didn't know existed. For example, when I was growing up, Greece has like a very amazing film industry and everything that I know now. But growing up, I remember watching a Greek film called A Dog's Tooth. It's an extremely bizarre, abstract film, and it spoke to me because I kind of imagine my life to be like that, like a very bizarre. Things don't make sense around you. There's something wrong, you can tell, but you just can't put your finger on it. That sort of a film. I mean, I watched that, and that made sense to me. So what I'm trying to say is, this whole thing about growing up always watching a film or having some parent or somebody in the family having something to do artistic, and that's what inspired you. All those things are probabilities, but there is also a good probability that you have had none of that, and you can, just dive right in and make it your own. That's what happened to me.
That's
And
super true.
yeah, and you name a language, I have seen a film.
Wow, you're definitely more expansive than me. I try to watch a lot of films, and I've always enjoyed them. But yeah, let's see. Well, I don't know if you are available to talk about mental health and PTSD because I was reading some of your blogs to get a better feel for who you are and just what you've written about and what your passions are and whatnot. I don't know if you'd be open to talking about that. I know what PTSD is. I've heard about it. I've dealt with depression myself. But like, I guess I don't know quite the perfect question to ask. Well, one of my questions is, if you can separate, like, this is such a broad question. I know it is. Like, what is it like living in India as a woman, but then separate the depression and PTSD so I could get like a separate picture for how they are together. Does that make sense? I don't even know if that's
I guess because mental health is also considered to be, or rather, mental illness is also considered to be such an invisible thing. I think you can remove an Indian woman from India, but you can never remove mental illness from her. You put her out anywhere, and she's gonna carry remnants of it because living in India in itself is a mental disorder for a woman. Some of the women could have gotten lucky, growing up in a nice, comforting, controlled sort of an environment where there was, hardly any violence or anything like that happened to her. I know a few people like that, but that doesn't mean that their experience of navigating through the society outside of their home is just as protected as it would be in her house, right? So invariably, literally every woman that I know of, and even if I don't know them, I know that if I ask them this question, have you been sexually harassed by somebody in your lifetime? The answer would be a yes. Um, the thing about I don't wanna romanticize this whole depressing outlook about being a woman in India.
yeah,
There are
same.
so many amazing things that women in India have done and achieved, despite all our impediments, all our drawbacks, and hurdles. But the most saddest part about Indian women dealing with mental distress is they don't even know that's what it's called. And 99% of the population can't afford to spend some time out to deal with it because they got shit to get done,
Yeah.
you know? And I mean, it's a privilege to be able to understand what mental illness means and whether you suffer from it, and to, assess what you can do about it to make your life better. All that is a privilege. And I know that I suffer deeply from various types of mental disorders, mental illnesses. I have chronic insomnia to begin with. I mean, if I could sleep for a peaceful 8 hours, it terrifies me. The thought of me getting a sleep of 8 hours a night terrifies me because in my head that is like an omen for something terrible that's gonna happen. So for me, this discomfort has become so familiar that I'd rather live and thrive in the discomfort, because anything happy, anything good, anything healthy freaks me out.
Wow.
This articulation, I don't think anybody can, offer, because we don't understand it. Like my mother wouldn't understand it. Some of my older cousins wouldn't understand it, and they probably are dealing with hundreds of them right this second, but they won't know to talk about it.
That's intense. I think that applies to obviously everyone, and it is one of those things where you can only describe a situation so much to someone, but if they haven't been through it, they're just obviously not going to know deeply and truly the essential of what you're explaining. And I find that to be a repetitive thing in society I see now, with just so many things, with any situation really. It's awful, the lack of empathy, or just the lack of taking your brain beyond what you're being told or beyond your understanding, and just being like, well, I wonder what that could feel like. I don't know. Not that people have to understand it fully, but I mean, this is obviously broad statements of
Yeah,
trans takeover stuff of like, well, what about women? Like, it's just, it blows my mind. I think it's just, I feel like it's some sort of long-term subtle brainwashing of some sort, to reject your red flags and gut feelings about stuff. And I think that's a actually smart mechanism if they were going to do it, to breed men to not have emotions and feelings. Because if you're able to have emotions and feelings about their own selves, I think obviously you'd be able to understand and see it in others. It goes right in line with what I just said about not truly understanding a situation and about someone. Because if you can't even feel that, how are you going to understand how someone's feeling, or how you made someone feel, or whatever? I'm talking about from the man stance, obviously. And that's why it makes so much sense to me that men graduate to these positions of high power, or power in any thing that they do, really, because they've been bred to reject their emotions. So of course it'd be easier to not feel things and just do the rising to the top tier and just smashing all the people down and just not
yeah,
caring about it. It makes so much sense to me. And
yeah.
women, I just don't understand why women are then, I guess, also not brainwashed, or whatever you want to call it, to also not feel, because we're kind of the not the red flag, but the messing up their plan, I guess, how to put it. If we do feel like, they're just probably just buzzing flies to men, feeling things, being humans. So it's weird, like that's bred out of them, but why wasn't it bred out of us? I guess because we have to be nurturing to. I don't know. It just,
It's true. What
yeah.
you're saying is true. All the things that you're saying is true. I mean, I think women are constantly being told to and not to do a thing constantly. So you're supposed to be emotional, and that's what mothers do. That emotion is what makes you a good mother. And at the same time, you get accused for being over emotional. It's the same for saying that you have to be driven, you have to be ambitious and courageous for you to face this horrible patriarchal misogynistic world. And at the same time, you can't just be too courageous. You'll be getting in a lot of trouble. Be like other girls. Just do enough. Do the due diligence. Cover your body enough, and despite that, if there is a problem, look for a male to help. But just don't venture in your own path and try and figure things out. It's the same for everything. You can aspire to do something, but you can't aspire too much. You have to be feminine, but you can't be too feminine. You have to like something, but at the same time you can't like something too much. So this constant feeding of things in this dichotomous manner confuses the living daylights out of women.
Yes.
It is probably also why many of the women from our mother's generation wouldn't wouldn't dare leave their abusive weddings, abusive marriages, because they are constantly being told to endure it as well as resist it by their
Yeah.
parents, by the society, and things like. Oh, but at your age, I mean, in the 80s, in the 90s, how can you come away and live by yourself? What's going to happen to your children? And this is an Indian conservative society we're talking about. Well, what will people say? How will your children grow? When people ask who your children's father is, what are you going to say? All kinds of weird things. And at the same time, while you're in the marriage, and when your husband abuses you, they're also telling you to tolerate it, because there is always something that's far worse than what you're going through. They'll constantly dumb your agony, your trauma down, because there's always somebody, some woman who got killed. But at least be glad that you're not killed. At least you're only bruised, your jaw is broken, your arms dislocated. That's fine, but you're not dead. And this scale is a constantly moving scale, and it will change circumstances based on every single woman. And that's what's so sad, so intriguing about this whole what's the word, mind trickery, some wizardry with regards to the transgenderism.
Yeah, yeah,
On the one hand, when men can continue to remain without any emotion, and that's why they're able to sort of stomp all over you and carry on upwards, women are taught the exact opposite. Women are taught to be so emotional that they are happy to give away their own rights to some guy with no emotion but is claiming to be female. So
Wow.
it's like a double-edged sword. You live with it. It's a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of baffles my mind. And it's one of those things that I was not able to grasp and understand fully until I became a feminist, whatever you want to call me, radfem, in November last year. Like, I'm super new, but, it's just been awful and very eye opening, obviously. Just every day seeing all this crap, literally every day. And I also think that's why feminism was so scary and like icky and smelly to me because of movies or cartoons or whatever. I know I've talked about this before, but it's still relevant. I think that was obviously on purpose to make women believe that feminists are annoying and like too opinionated and just like naggy. Like, oh, I don't want to be that. Ew. So I literally had this aversion to it. And I finally, jumped in and just was like, what is this all about? Like, let's just go. Finally, let's just get this over with, not or whatever. Look into it. And I was amazed. And I was like, it was just such a, I guess, good shock to be like that. Well, of course they would breathe that into women. To be like, you don't want to do this. You don't want to talk to other women. Because obviously, for women to find their, like, and I'm not going to say magic, but if it does feel like magic, intuitive. I feel like it's a woman thing, intuitiveness, or just being able to like see things, and maybe that does deal with the emotion thing, because I'm not trying to be like I'm better because I'm a woman and we can see things clearer, or discern things. It's not what I'm talking about. But I just also find that if you don't tap into your femaleness as a woman, female, adult human female, then you are gonna slip up and not see what all this trans bullshit is for what it really is. I think it's going to be much easier to be a fool or just ride along with it and be kind and trapped in the wrong body, utter crap. It's just
It's true.
wild.
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm writing a sort of a longish piece right now, a text piece of prose. It started with like I want to do like a 1-page blog and then plug my film and then try and pitch it somewhere so that and any particular audience that has not seen the film maybe would see it. More word out the better, right? So I started writing like a page, and right now I'm on the 7th page.
Keep
writing
going.
about writing about something that doesn't seem to end. And this whole reference to transgenderism and my view of how things like being female has sort of completely transformed me into how I look at life right now, being a female. It is so depressing. You wake up and what? Like, what the fuck to do today? Get on your computer, write about this, speak about it, talk to more women, rally them together, explain to them how grave the situation is. Be a fucking idiot because not everybody's going to understand what you're saying. You do that over and over and over again. The other day I was speaking to like a slightly older feminist, a lesbian feminist from Canada. She's a lovely woman. Her name is Tam. we were talking, and she was talking about how she spent about 5 decades working for women empowerment and try to emancipate women from the patriarchal shackles and everything. And as I was talking to her, I realized, man, I'm talking to a woman who spent an entire lifetime for this one cause. And to me, at that point in time, briefly, it struck me that I think I'm going to spend an entire lifetime doing this too, because I don't see light at the end of the tunnel yet. Way out,
Yeah.
but the whole this whole lifetime of trying to ask for basic rights, I don't think we've been dealt with the right set of cards at all, actually. And
Yeah, I think it's yeah, I think once you become a feminist and you're active in whatever you do, I think you do come to the realization of, well, I guess I'm in this for till the day I die because yeah, it's just I'm a pessimistic person, but this shit is so bad that I'm like forcing myself to try to see something light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm like, I think we're fucked, like straight up. I mean, here I am. I'm just gonna be pessimistic straight up. I think we're screwed, and I keep comparing it to the movie Equilibrium, where there's this underground society of people that are not the black and white whatever world, and I'm like, well, that's my future, and let's go. Like transhumanism, I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Like shit is running really rapid with that. I think at a rate that we aren't even aware of. I mean, with most technology, and I do believe also the brainwashing thing. I've also said this before, but if the propaganda stuff was, I don't know if it like truly started in the 20s or the 1910 or whatever, or one of the earliest ones. God, I always forget that guy's name. The father
Harry
of propaganda.
Benjamin.
No, I forget. Damn it, I should have written it down. Anyway, like if they've had it, it's basically been like 100 years. Of course, they're gonna have levels of propaganda and mind manipulation where we're not able to spot it at all because we picked up on, I guess, propaganda. I feel like the propaganda people realize like 10 years later or obviously after the fact. But I'm like, well, with the internet, I think that's what's also making us really fucked because I think it's sped it up at alarming rates that clearly the people that have made these apps, so they say, didn't expect it to go this way. So I'm like, well, it's truly a fucking snowball gathering more snow down the hill. You're not going to stop that. So that's why I think we're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, a few days ago,
oh, no,
somebody
go
on
ahead.
Twitter was talking about how things are bleak and grave, and how majority of us are constantly talking about how we're not going to see a single win during our lifetime. Um, Somebody else had also talked about how, at least now, a lot of us are feeling that together. A lot of us are feeling like the future is looking bleak. Earlier, we didn't even have that. The future is looking bleak, no doubt. But now, the number of people realizing that, from the sex based rights point of view, the number is increasing. And I think that's one tiny win that we have. We're galvanizing, right? Globally, we're coming together. Um, we are somehow in our really weird, fisting the air kind of a way. We're throwing some tantrum, we're creating some noise, we're just doing something, man, to make
Sorry.
ourselves heard. So I think I am a dead pessimistic person. I mean, I am, people can truly get depressed just talking to me. I'm such a
Same.
pessimistic person. Yeah. but but this is the truth. We are all there, we're all talking about it, and we're all constantly trying to get more people to talk about it. I think that's the plus. And eventually, like all historic events in the past, the universe will have to regress to some average. It's just that we don't know when that'll be, and we don't know how steep down we're going to go before we get to the average. Because I fear that what we're facing right now is barely even the beginning of bad.
Yeah.
I think things are about to get pretty bad, and the number of people that are assisting are also going to go on increasing and increasing, because more people will start seeing this bullshit for what it is, and more people will resist it. So it's going to be like a tug of war. with some very minimal resistance, and it's only from us, radical feminist, gender critical women. And we're up against what? Giants. But at least we are providing that resistance.
Yeah. Well said. I mean, you just said you're pessimistic. I'm like, that was pretty optimistic to me. Hey, I welcome that because that kind of optimism is at least to me feels very realistic.
Yeah, that my pessimism drives me, to be honest. It's not optimism. I'm not thinking, oh, tomorrow's going to be better, so today I'm going to fight for it. No, tomorrow's going to be shit. So I'm going to try and put up with it as much as I can today.
You're just realistic.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely realistic. And to a point that I'm antagonizing to anybody that's even shedding a bit of optimism. I'm like, okay, all your positive thoughts and prayers and shit, it's great. You can have it. They do nothing to me. Let me just, thrive in this whole cesspool of how horrible really things are and try and work my way out. That's just my policy. Because it's easier. It's easier. You're already down. How further down you can go. But if you're there somewhere, in a denial, on an ignorant stage, that was going to hurt.
Yeah, reality's going to smack you in the face. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had with my mom, I tell her, and I know all this stuff is so overwhelming and extremely disturbing on levels people just have no idea. And I try to tell her just kind of word vomit stuff about I hate using, I just have this conflict constantly of like not wanting to use transgender terminology, but I have to use it because it's currently happening. I don't like to use it because it obviously perpetuates their ideology, but I'm not going to ignore reality and not state what it is. But just, talking about transgender stuff to my mother, and I don't really hold back, obviously, and she just gets to a point after me saying like 4 short snippets of, oh, stop, I can't, like, I know she has like her own trauma, and like I can obviously respect that and understand that and not keep going, but then I'm like, I just still obviously have that urgency of like, I know it sucks, do you think I enjoy this shit? Like, it's every day, and I'm not like blaming her, it's not that, but it's also just a frustration of like, oh God, I know. All right, I'll start again some other time. But
But the mothers, right? I'm sure you're very, very younger than me, but I'm 35.
I'm older than you.
Okay.
Sorry, that was funny.
Right. Well, but then if I can just sort of generalize, our mothers, right? Our mothers, they're as dangerously bizarre this whole thing is. They're also the kind of people that form the majority of the world. The people that are not affected by it, who don't buy it. Like when I made my mother watch Dysphoric after I finished it, she was the first person who watched it on TV.
Oh, wow.
She watched it and she asked me a lot of questions. But the entire time she watched it, she heard all these experts talk, she heard the detransitionals talk, she heard the feminists talk, she heard it, she heard everything, and she finished it. She watched the last part, she choked up, and then we stopped, and then we looked at each other, and she looked like she had a lot of questions, and I said, okay, shoot. She just said, but how? But how, she means, but how can girls be boys? That's how the majority of the world thinks. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, that's just so simple in her head. You're male or you're female. And that is somehow a little heartening to me, because the number of people that we ought to make them see the light is probably a lot lesser than we think.
Yep.
And the people that are refusing to see the light, those are going to be the hardest to deal with.
Oh, yeah. I think you're so correct on that. I went home recently and talked to my family, and I've always felt like I didn't get along with my family because I was like the weird child, or I don't know. So it's just my own personal, like, oh, my family doesn't like me, I don't want to go back and visit. But then I got over that with my own therapy last year or 2 years ago, and it's been amazing. So this recent trip home was just incredible, like completely different. I don't remember the last time. Well, it's never been like that. I can say that because the triggers popped up and I saw them and was like, this is a trigger. She didn't hear you. She's not ignoring you. It's okay. Or if there's a situation where like it's just like family weirdness, I'm like, well, I'm going to excuse myself and walk out of the room. It's just like, I'm an adult now. I can figure this shit out. Yes, the triggers are still there. Yes, there's stuff that is really gets to my childhood shit that's gonna always happen, but I can now deal with it. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, well I've been able to connect with my family. I have 5 siblings, family, 6 kids total. My oldest siblings, I don't even know them. Like, I don't know if it's a generation gap or they see me
Mm,
as a weirdo. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I've been able to connect with like my brother about this. My brother's very quiet, and I don't know. It's not like we didn't get along. It's just we didn't have a personal friendship. But for us to even like talk to each other and him be like, "Look at this," like a funny cartoon thing. Granted, they're very conservative Southern Baptist
mm,
people, but
mm,
I'm like, I don't even care because I don't care what you are, your religion or who you voted for. It's really honestly not about that. This is about basic biology and science, and like they really like peaked themselves. And obviously, peaking means coming to and being like what your mom did. Really, a boy can't become a girl can't become a boy. So I think you're completely correct on that.
yeah.
Where I think most of the I don't know. I guess I'll just speak for America, where they're just like, that's stupid. What are you talking about? So that's what was my earlier thoughts about all this when I started investigating all this. Where I'm like, well, okay, I think it's just crap on Twitter, and like that's just a lot of awkward teens and people that like to be rebellious and whatnot on Twitter and the internet. But then I see all this shit happen in real life, like Biden's EO or laws, a DSM, like schools, where I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, this is real. It's such a confusing thing because I'm like, I don't even know which schools are having this indoctrination or just, I don't know, throwing crap in the stew.
Mm.
It's confusing in the sense of I guess like I can't get a grasp for how widespread it is, at least in America. I know it's really widespread in the around the world and to points where I'm like it's just dangerous. Obviously, any of it for it to be exist anywhere. I don't know. I just think it's just probably one of those things where I have to sit back and watch. Uh, I don't know. See how much it
Yeah.
does go on for. How many? I just how can this exist for so long though? I mean, for I don't know. I predicted just a random number 10 years. For people to maybe wake up, or I don't know until what. How
No, they
can this
would,
exist?
but the resistance from the big players would also increase, right? They'll try and so it's like you go online every day, you see a new thing. Every day there's a new thing that you cannot say. Few days ago, few months ago, it was vagina. A month before that was periods, and now you can't call trans woman a trans woman because apparently that's transphobic. So every day there's like a new kind of distraction that they want you to focus on, that they want you to hyper focus on, so that there are other things that are happening in the background. This is what magicians do. And when they create illusions, they hand something to you in front of you, so you see the hand, but the real trick is happening somewhere else. The number of animation movies that we grew up watching would tell you that, and this is kind of like that. You're sort of disillusioning me into believing something is happening in X place, but really something far more devious is happening everywhere else. So that's what I think. On an everyday basis, some new corporation would trigger some sort of a shitstorm online, and we're all hyper focusing on that. And but in the meantime, they probably have signed something with, I don't know, UN Women maybe, to do a corporate social responsibility project. I don't know if you're familiar that Women's Human Rights Campaign, the WHRC, was with this event that UN conducted earlier the weekend, during the weekend. It was a month-long event. Offline, it would have happened in New York, and it's a big deal. Every year in March, it's a big deal. Thousands of women from around the world flock to this particular space to talk about women, right? And WHRC was perhaps the only booth, like online virtual booth, that talked about women's sex based rights and challenged gender identity ideology. They got booted out. They got booted out multiple times. The many users that were constantly on other booths trying to challenge the gender identity people when a trans person was talking about how men should be in women's sports, individually, they were all getting booted out. See how, on an institutional level, we are getting sold out. If you and women is going to do something like this, well, there is very little you can expect from your corner shop selling menstrual products, feminine hygiene products. You're not even supposed to call it feminine now. You're just going to be like, hygiene products or something. You're not supposed to say the word.
Oh my God, yeah. God, I don't, is that like an intentional thing that they're distracting you? People, like, obviously I feel like this pandemic is playing into their cards, and I don't think it's convenient that, at least to me, the transgender empire and movement has really, I feel like the floodgates opened while people were are stuck indoors and sucked in on their computers and phones even more so. I don't think that's just my own personal belief. This is about like conspiracy shit. I'm not here to really talk about that. I mean, we can, but I don't know. It's just too much weird shit, honestly, where I'm like, well, that's so convenient for for kids to be on their computers and phones and whoopsie indoctrinated. Although I have heard the opposite, where I interviewed someone that was like involved with teachers in Virginia, where the kids are now at home, but it was a benefit because the kids weren't being indoctrinated in the schools. And I was like, well, that's good, awesome, unexpected. I'm just like, a lot of women now are like, do I even want to have a kid? Like, why the fuck would I have a kid? And I'm just like of the stance of fuck it. Like, when has it been great for women? I don't know. I don't want this shit to like stop me from doing what I want to do. I'm not like a mommy, matronly woman either, but I would like to have a kid. I'm just not going to let I'm not going to let their fear stuff seep into me. And I mean, that's what they want. I mean, that's what I feel like what they've been wanting to do this entire time, instilling fear in people. Just go along with it. Be nice. Be nice as to now do as I say. So yeah, obviously it's going to be tough. I have no idea how to navigate, even before all this went down, at least to me, seeing it and understanding it. Like, I was always like, how the fuck am I going to raise a kid with the internet existing and cell phones, and then being jealous that their friend has a cell phone or whatever? I'm going to be like the uncool, not fun mom and dad of like, you can't fucking have that. Like, how do you, it's impossible to explain to youth about, because I was trying to explain to my niece recently, like, why she doesn't have TikTok. And I'm like, oh, God, I can't even, I mean, she's in 8th grade, but I'm like, I'm not your mom. I don't know how to navigate this. I can't tell you the true horrors of TikTok, but I'm just like, I promise you it's for your protection. I know that's probably what I feel like, because I'm not her mom and she finds me to be the cool aunt that it does get into
that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And that's also been another amazing thing about going home and connecting with my nieces and nephews, because before I was like, I don't care about them, but now I've found this beautiful opportunity to speak into them, and boy did I. And it was amazing, because I do look like I am the cool aunt. That wasn't on purpose either. It was not intentional. I just am cool. I'm just kidding. It just happened like that. But that is such a wonderful opportunity for someone that they look up to tell them the truth. Before I left, one of my nieces, I was like, there's only male and there's only female. If anyone tries to convince you of otherwise, it's not true. It's sex, not gender. And she was like, it was just adorable. And I know, it's just one of those things where I feel like I have awesome purpose now, because I've lived my life of like, what am I supposed to be doing, and wildly flailing and trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do. And I've done all sorts of weird, crazy jobs, and I feel like I'm like, I just feel like this is it, even though it may not be a name, I don't know, advocate for free speech, whatever you want to call it. It feels amazing just to get to a point where I'm just speaking my mind, and I'm at a place where I'm not working in academia or 9 to 5, where my first podcast episode was called Already Canceled. Like, I canceled myself. It's just a joke. Like, I don't give a shit. It's so dumb.
I like it.
Yeah, I could care less. And I feel like I have to do this. It would be so embarrassing and such ashamed if I didn't do this, because I can. So, and a lot of people cannot. Like, most people can't speak out because of their jobs, their community, their family, whatever, what have you. So I'm like, this is something that I don't have a choice. And it's not that I'm like, oh man. I mean, yes, there are times where I'm like, oh, but I wouldn't change this for the world. I'm like, this is, and it makes sense to me. I'm I don't mind speaking my mind and being loud or whatever, or ruffling feathers. I don't give a shit. It's the truth. What's wrong with speaking the truth?
No, absolutely nothing. This whole paranoia about bringing a child into this world. I mean, this paranoia has existed for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now it's the trans and the internet and everything. Before it was, just
Yeah.
sickness and
It's true.
diseases and poverty and depravity, and later on it was climate change. And there's this really wonderful articles written by some of the most prominent environmentalists. I forget her name, but maybe I can tell you later, and you could include a
Yeah.
link or something.
Yes, please.
She talked about how to look forward to motherhood in a world that is collapsing in itself. In a future that looks so bleak, how can you potentially bring a child in knowing that you probably will not be there when she's, say, 30, and she's got to be there in this world all by herself, having to navigate all the horrors, and you can't do anything. Even if you are alive, you can't help her. So there are these thoughts about bringing a child into this world, but that has been, I think, a permanent fear for people. I mean, for some people. I mean, there
Yeah.
are people that just reproduce uh, without a care. I mean, in India especially, I mean, I wish people would use contraception, but that's a topic for another time. But we are punished for both having and not having children. In India, in the state that I'm in, it's called Tamil Nadu. In Tamil Nadu, your emergency contraceptive pills, right, the one that you have morning after, for no reason they had banned it. Well, for a reason, moral reason, they had banned it. But if you probably had like a prescription from a gynecologist, you could get it. But it's an over-the-counter drug. You're not supposed to need a prescription for it. So they had this moral ban, and a few years ago, I had worked to lift that, but it is still not available though. They still make excuses that it's out of stock and things like that. So I'm just thinking, you force women into having children by making contraception and abortion and reproductive rights so difficult to obtain, and at the same time you punish her if she is either choosing not to or is unable to bear children. So like I said before, you're going to be punished for both doing and not doing something at the same time, and this is like the most master manipulation that the world has sort of learned and picked on our sex class to oppress. And this is how they've succeeded, because till the day you die, you will never be sure what was your life about. Did you have a good life or did you not? You don't know, because the whole world tells you both things at the same time. So which one is it? So when I talk to my mother, I'm asking her, how do you feel about your life? She's like, I've got 2 kids. You're both doing well. I'm very happy that you have this aspect in you where you want to do good and yada yada whatever. But I ask her, how does she feel about her life? Outside of us, just as her. She says, I don't know. I can't understand that question,
Wow.
because her entire life has had some sort of a bearing on us. When she had us, she gave herself up for us, and from that point on, we have been the reason why she's alive, enduring all kinds of abuse and all of that. So it's a it's an extremely difficult time for women to be alive. But when we think about it, it has been extremely difficult time for women to be alive, regardless of what the evil that we're facing. It could be our mother, it could be our grandma, it could be us, it could be our next generation. But women, until we sort of really topple patriarchy and really find ourselves in every leadership position possible, and have some sense in us to position women based on her sex and not gender at the forefront, I don't think things are about to change. It's going to get worse and worse and worse, and then perhaps someday it will.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I have to agree. That sounds, yeah. I mean, that's why I've been like, this can only go so far, something so crazy before it, topples over. And I don't know, reality is like, hello. Let's see. I had a question from a friend. She said, "What do Western liberal women need to know about how gender ideology is affecting the global majority of women and girls?" And she said, "Western women don't understand how harmful the ideology of disembodiment is for the global majority for women and girls." I was like, that was a good question.
Sure, of course. I mean, there are very, very different aspects of looking at it. From if you if you pick the vantage point of a particular crime against a woman, take female genital mutilation, for example. The way gender identity ideology is trying to underplay the harms of female genital mutilation is by reclaiming the word genital, female from the FGM aspect of it. That's one way of looking at it. And how many countries are plagued by FGM? I have lost count. It's there in India as well, even though the officials are denying that it is an actual official crisis that Muslim women face, but they don't want to admit it because they want to maintain that there aren't any such social evils happening. But if you remove uh, or if you underplay or if you dim down a particular violence against a woman, you're basically making two things, rendering two things as true. One is that it's, first of all, not important enough. And two, you are disallowing any any voice in support of it, or rather any voice against it. So for example, in female genital mutilation, if this whole gender identity people are like, oh, FGM people are like, oh no, please don't cut us, and trans people are like, oh no, but we want us to be cut, so female genital mutilation people, just please be quiet.
Oh my God.
That's what's happening. The second aspect of it that I was trying to get to is, when we resist that, them being so butthurt about it, this allows us from resisting. So when Hebo Wadre, who's like a pioneering advocate for female genital mutilation, against female genital mutilation, the other day trans rights activists sort of hounded her for saying, well, such a thing doesn't exist, but by constantly saying FGM, ban FGM, you are denying us our basic rights and you're literally killing trans people. She did resist, and so did so many people. But by sort of portraying their calamity or their crisis to be far more superior than the actual grave danger that young girls face in the Muslim community, you're making it unimportant and you're making it impossible for me to resist your oppression. And that's true for the female genital mutilation, that's true for the caste system, that's true for prostitution, that's true for trafficking. There is this entire lobby in India where the trans identified males who resort to prostitution as work has lobbied with a bunch of non-governmental organizations from around the world and is now resisting an act that is supposed to be for protecting girls and women that are getting trafficked into prostitution. So the trans identified males claim that if this act gets passed, they can't do their work because they will also be assumed to be trafficked. So you make your concern so huge that you make somebody else's concern not so important at all. And when you resist it, they have created such a huge wreck already that any resistance from us would seem super futile. So I think these are just a couple of examples that I want to say when we think about the global South, that the West sometimes might. It's not like they're not aware, but sometimes it doesn't come to mind.
Yeah.
I'm in India and I know that the number of girls that get trafficked into prostitution is far more in Nepal. But when I'm talking about prostitution and situation in India, I'm not thinking about Nepal exactly. But I should be, because when we're talking about women, we're talking about all women from around the world. I think that aspect, would be nice to keep in mind when in the West, when women are talking about feminism, when we're talking about global feminism. I think it should be very, very important that we keep in mind, the other forms of evils that women have to navigate that would make it difficult for them to put gender identity as a priority. So in India, there's just caste is such a big epidemic that when you go and talk to, say, a woman in the countryside, you want to talk to her about women's sex-based rights. She's like, I don't I don't give a shit, because she's got 10 other things that's a far bigger problem because of the caste that she was born into. That she doesn't have time
Yeah.
to go fight with me for something that I'm privileged about, that I don't have to worry about her, the caste, the evils of caste, and I have the privilege to hyper focus on sex based rights, but she can't do that. And I think this is a lesson for all of us across the hierarchy. Whenever we think of global feminism, we need to constantly keep in mind the women that do not have that voice, or the women that do not have the potential to find sex based rights to be a priority at this point in her life.
Yeah.
She might be raped, she might be raped, and the next morning she has to get up and go and work for the same employer. I can't even imagine living a life like that. And she has to endure it by a mere stroke of luck, because she was born into that family that is part of abhorrent social system of the caste system. So it's not even her fault that she has to
Yeah.
endure it. But to expect her to work with me, somebody who's far more privileged, to work for sex-based rights, is just fucking arrogant. So we need to keep our focus um, alive and thriving from various vantage points. Is what I'm trying to say. Women
Yeah.
in Ghana, women in Sri Lanka, women in Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, everybody, all of us. We've got to think about what is so unique about a certain community or a certain diaspora that would make it difficult for us to work as one unit for our emancipation as women. Because we've come here and we're talking about emancipating ourselves as women, but they have to get past some 20 other hurdles to get where I am right now. So we've got to help her get to where I am right now, and then together we've got to move forward. So that is why I think most of my fear, that is where most of my fear comes from, because I fear that I might not even be able to bring my sister from there to where I am in my lifetime, because that is how bad things are. I think that's like a nice way to look at global feminism in general, to hold hands somehow, not let go, to like the last woman standing. They just put your hand out, wait, do something.
Yeah. I love that. That's so true. Very, very true. God, the whole liberal feminism thing. Well, I think I heard briefly in one of your interviews that you were a liberal feminist and then you became a rad
Yeah.
fem. What was the one, I guess, straw that broke the camel's back thing? Or I don't know if it was gradual or a one thing. Um, yeah.
It was like a slow and gradual movement and one snap. And I'll tell you, it's a very interesting story. My friend will be very happy um, to hear it. So I mean, from a conservative house to a liberal feminist model, I felt very liberated, and I thought this was it. It can't get better than this. But the little problem points for me were, porn and prostitution always, and also the way a certain community of people must look a certain way, wear religion on their body or wear their caste on their body, or in ancient India there used to be something called the breast tax, so people belonging to a certain caste, if they cover their breast, they need to pay tax. That's called the breast tax. So
If you
who
cover
decides?
your breast?
Yes, because you're expected to walk naked.
Oh,
Because
wow.
of your caste, you're not allowed to wear clothes. You're not allowed to look civilized. You're not allowed dignity. Okay, so there used to be a breast tax for this community of people, and in very, very far remote corners of this country, certain practices are still, rampant. It's not gone away. Even though caste system is deemed unconstitutional, it's still rampant. Obviously, it's rampant. Um, um, I forget where I was going with this.
Lip fem to
Yes,
radical fem.
yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I know that these things happen, and I know that I just simply couldn't, nod my head and go with the flow what everybody was saying. Basically, what they were saying was everything was okay if it is her choice. Now, the question is, how do you know that she has a choice in the matter? How can you ascertain that she has a choice in the matter? So those were like my little questions, but then I was too afraid, and I chickened out. I would never like I would keep it within myself. Like, oh, that doesn't sound good. Oh, I better not ask because the admin of this group might kick me out. But
Yep.
I want to be in this group because if I leave this group, I have to go back to my conservative family, and I don't want that. So that used to be the thing. And I also founded this community of female filmmakers called Women Making Films about 6 years ago.
Yay.
And when I created it, yeah, it has members from about 19 countries. When
Amazing.
I created it like a liberal feminist. In the introduction, it would say for women and everybody who identify as women. Please, I judge myself enough. Do not judge me.
I'm not
So
judging, not at all, not even remotely. Mm-mm. Nope.
yeah, so I wrote that, and this friend of mine, this male friend of mine, was chatting with me, and he said, "Oh, looks nice. Looks." I mean, he knows that I created this, and we were just generally chatting about the upcoming events and things like that. So he's like, "Oh, I went through the bio part of it. It says identify as women. Do you mean men?" That's all he asked. What do you mean identify as women? Are you talking about men? And of course, I was implying men, but I didn't want men in the community. I wanted it to be exclusively for females. And when he asked me that question, you know how in science fiction movies, like this little camera will go into your brain, you'll see all this neural whatever networks and everything, and then suddenly it'll come out, and you're like, whoa. That happened to me when I was talking to him. He just asked me that, and just I think last month or something, jokingly we dug up that part of our chat very very early on, and we looked at it and we laughed about it. He had moved on from many of the ideas that liberal feminists espouse. So he sort of distanced himself from that at a very early stage. When he started condemning it and challenging it and everything, I was reading it, and whatever he said made sense. And then because of him, he then introduced me to a couple of groups that were talking something so radically different from the liberal feminists, whatever the liberal feminists were saying. About how the harms of prostitution, and how you can never really predict choice, and how porn is not empowering, and there is no such thing as feminist porn, and all of that. I mean, suddenly it was like my I thought when I ventured into liberal feminism, my world changed. When I ventured into radical feminism, I felt like I arrived. I felt like this is where I was supposed to be, man. What it was like this minor detour to liberal feminism, and then when I started reading all this, everything made sense. Everything. I mean, I did not have a single point of contention with anything, and this also sort of worked very well with the way my approach to the caste system in India works too. I understand that the intersectionality that we need in feminism must involve the intersection of other social evils like the caste system, like the religious oppression, like the fascism. And that is the kind of intersectionality that I was after. And radical feminism, reading Andrea Dworkin, Sheila Jeffries, and everything made me realize, even though they mention intersectionality in the Western sense, I could apply it to my country and other South Asian countries where we have all these very unique challenges. It just still seemed to work. And that's it. My friend asked me if I meant men when I said identify as women, and that's all he did. And I was like an overnight radical feminist. And from
Wow.
there on, it was just me trying to consume a lot of stuff and just shut myself out from the world and just keep consuming. Because,
Same.
like all things, yeah, because like all things, you if you're espousing something, and if you're going to live your life a certain way with certain principles, you got to be really sure. You've got to really thoroughly read and understand what it is that you're talking about. You can't just just speak out of your, I don't know, somewhere else in the bottom. But you've got to know what you're talking about. You've got to
You
have
can't just
some.
repeat cold speak.
Yes, exactly. You can't just keep saying no. I'm saying, therefore it's true. So you've got to just believe it. It doesn't work like that. And I'm a very scientific person. I apply logic. I apply rationality to things. So when science says, we're not saying there is no God, we're just saying there is no proof of there being a God. Now that's something that I can get behind. I have never, I mean, I used to be a believer, but I have moved on from there, and I'm able to look at the whole world in a completely different perspective, because I know what religion is doing to women in my country. And I don't want that for women. I mean, I know a lot of religious women, and they are my friends, and there are radical feminists who are religious, whatever. But I personally can't see eye to eye with any religious practices at all. With that, I was able to correlate that with my radical feminist this whole new thing that sort of just came onto me like that.
Yeah.
Everything made sense, and thankfully from there on, because I've had no iota of doubt about all the things that it was saying, I've never looked back. And since then, I think my life has gotten a lot simpler. No more walking over eggshells. No more worrying about which community that you're going to offend today. You're just going to offend one group, everybody that is not woman. And this kind of activism is a lot more simpler to me, and a lot more easier, and a lot more effective.
Yeah.
And I think ever since I found radical feminism, I have lived in the most honest self, and I'm truly grateful for it. I'm truly grateful for my friend for asking me that really bizarre question and just doing something to my brain. And wow, ever since then, it's like
freedom.
It's like I halved or something. This huge boulder on my chest is just gone away. It's like it was never there. It's so liberating and so I mean,
same. I mean,
I wish that for many women, you know. I wish that, because this feeling is phenomenal. I mean, it's very lonely, but it's phenomenal.
Yep. For men and women. I mean, it's just in terms of keeping true to reality and what we've all known for decades and years about science and biology. It's just, it's that awesome feeling of, it's, again, circling back to the beginning of, I can't convince people of, the freedom that just speaking the truth is. There's just so many people in fear. Even I've had a lot of men actually reach out to me in private messages being like, hey, just so you know, like, I agree with you, or, in response to an Instagram story or something. It's gotten to a point where I kind of get pretty annoyed, because I'm like, so I'm sticking my neck out here and dealing with this shit daily, you're not, and you're coming out to me. It's just like so insulting in a way. And like, you're afraid to talk about it on your Facebook because of some people. I mean, how close are you to those some people? The people that rejected me, like, I'm like acquaintances with. So I'm like, bye. And it was, that wave of people, I can't believe you. Oh my God, are you serious? Not every trans identifying male is a pedophile or rapist. I'm like, I never said they were. Like, not all of them. It's just like, it's not the fucking point. People are so, that hill those people died on was really bizarre. It was a story about the dad that raped his own child and went to prison and got like federal funding to transition or transfer to women's prison. I was like, why are you attacking me? You're not even addressing the damn story. All I said was all I posted was like, think about the ideology that you're supporting, or what is it you're supporting? That's all I said. And they just lashed out at me and like how I'm a shitty artist and turf this, and I can't believe you. You're going against what you used to be against, or you're supporting what I used to be against. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I barely even knew that guy. These people are crazy. They just make up their own. I don't know. That was so upsetting. And I don't know. It's one of the things I try to keep telling people, where it's like, so get that first wave of people being crazy to you. And it is scary, because when it happened, I was like, oh my God, am I wrong? It's just that effect that comments have on social media, where, it's why you shouldn't read them, really, even though it's really hard to do that. But you shouldn't read them, because there is a sense that, not that you fully believe them, but it does get to that point where you're like, wait, am I a bad person? Because people are saying this. So I'm just like, it's the first wave of people. You'll get a couple of sprinkling after that, but it's fucking worth it. Like, it's just, I've always been like opinionated or whatever, or questioned everything, highly skeptical about everything. But this is like so different, and it is total freedom. And I would wish that I want everyone to have that. It's so
Yeah,
I can't convince them. It sucks. I'm like,
yeah.
well, it's gonna come to a day where it's gonna affect you personally in one way or another. I don't want to. I'm just like I don't want to get to a point where I'm like I told you so. I don't. I just not in
No,
a
I'm waiting for that
ha
day. Oh, I'm waiting
ha.
for that. I am waiting to I told you so the fuck out of this world.
Oh my god. Well, yes, same. I mean, I
one,
guess I
one
have some of that me.
one more thing I wanted to say about, these men sort of attacking you because you supported or you spoke against how this man was now getting money for transitioning himself and then going to women's
Yeah.
prison. I made a film before this on workplace sexual harassment, and one of my interviewees talked about how when a woman writes her experience on social media about what happened to her, many men attack that woman, call her a liar, call her a whore, call her all
This
kinds of
didn't
things.
happen.
Yeah, that never happened. You're imagining, you're horrible. They do that because when they read what that woman has written, they are thinking, oh my God, I've done this to somebody else. So I can't allow for this to be true or for this woman to be speaking the truth. Therefore, I'm going to make it my mission to somehow make at least 100 people believe that she's a liar. That way, my credibility will remain intact, and the fact that I did something like this to some other woman will be justified, will be
Wow.
normalized. That is why all these people that attack us for not, supporting transgender ideology are in some way, in some form, invested in it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would you have a problem if a woman is asking for her basic rights? Why?
Yeah.
I don't get it. You've definitely got something in it, some ulterior motive in it. Just come out and say what it is, and then we will talk about it.
Yeah. That blew my mind. Oh, it was so bizarre. It's just like, what? How is speaking up for or standing for women's rights? How is that bigotry? It's so dumb. It's so dumb. I'm like, it's just one of those things that you do keep. Like I said, the sprinklings of it. You just learn to deal with it, and it's just a repetitive pattern of language of bigot, transphobe. It's really boring. I'm really bored. It does not. It doesn't affect you anymore once you just keep. It's the same shit. It's the same stuff over and over. I'm like, it truly is boring.
Yeah, it is now. I'm like, come up with something new, man.
Yeah, exactly. They don't have anything. They really don't. It's actually kind of entertaining in a sense. Yeah, I don't know. Where did you have you had a sense of being rebellious in your life in general? I mean, was your mom rebellious in any way, or was it just like obviously your surroundings that made you be like, "Fuck this"? How'd you get
Yeah.
brave? Stupid question. I don't know. Boring question, I'm sure.
No, it's just that in India, I think for a majority of women, that is not an option. You've gotta get brave really quick. You've
Yeah, yeah.
gotta you've gotta figure out that your family member is in fact a child molester at a very young age, and that's what happened to me. I don't think my mom was rebellious. I don't think anybody in my family was rebellious at all. I think I am, and it's also why my entire family does not talk to me and is in a way terrified of me. And I like that. I totally enjoy that power I have over them, the way they're so scared of me. But I think when you're on your own, when your parents are working, and when you have an abusive sort of a violent sort of a family, there is very little you want to take to your parents as complaints because they've got their own shit. And you learn that at a very young age. I have fallen down, I've been injured, and I wouldn't tell my mom because she'll worry, or I don't want to cause her another stress or something like that. Of course, I had my teenage tantrums. Of course, I was really painful to live with. Of course, I did that, but I would still think that was nothing compared to a nice protected house. A girl in a nice protected house would cost. But I've had a very sort of a well, I mean, I don't want to sound very. bizarre or anything, but I've always lived my life as a third person. I've watched myself grow up. I've watched myself achieve things. I've watched myself weep. I've watched myself laugh with friends. Watched myself fall in love and get my heart broken. So I think I have also watched myself eventually get braver by the day. And now, whatever I am, I think is a consolidation of all those experiences that I've had in my life.
Yeah.
There isn't a starting point per se, but I would say that it was still very, very soon, a lot sooner than it should be, a lot sooner than um, what shall I say? There are things that you shouldn't know as a child,
Yeah, you
but
grew
you
up
do
fast
know.
or something.
Yeah, 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 and that was not an option. So yeah, I think from that point on, when it started pissing people off, that means that there is some merit to it. There's some value to it, and it'll only piss people off when women do it, and then there's more value to it.
Yeah, straight up. Um, let's see. Aw. I mean, yeah, we talked about that. We talked about that. I mean, we talked about all my talking points. If there's anything you wanted to mention, oh, I could talk to you forever. I feel like I should. It was hard for me to write down things. I don't want to be inappropriate. I am so clueless about Indian culture. I did listen to your interview with Object UK, and that was mind blowing. I mean, I know it's hard for Indian women, but I had no clue. Like, it's absolutely horrifying. It's shocking, and I guess I'm not surprised for whatever reason because men exist. But my God, it just, I mean, how would I find out about it? I'm not going to learn this in school. It's just one of those things that you have to like do your own research, or I don't even know, listen to a woman from India. You're
I
so,
think it's true. It's true. It's true for me too. You know, it's true for the caste that I was born into. Immediately shields me from a lot of things that a majority of the women in this country go through. I probably don't have to go through 10 things that a woman from a marginalized caste has to go through. Okay, I had access to education. We grew up in we we didn't have a lot. We were not upper class. We did not have a lot. In fact, we did not have much at all. But because of the privilege of caste, there were certain things that were easier for us, even though we were not upper class.
can you
Um,
define caste? I've heard you mentioned a couple times, and I think I know what it is, but just to be clear.
yeah, so you know, class is basically, you know, your financial status
Yeah.
in a society, and that basically defines where in the hierarchy you are. That's class. And caste is basically a social hierarchical model that is very unique to South Asian countries, where purely by the chance of your birth, you become a certain caste depending on what caste your parents and their parents were. Okay,
Thank you.
so there are four different castes. There are the Brahmins, that is considered to be the top of the hierarchy, the upper caste as they call it, which I don't. And then there is the Shudras and the Kshatriyas, and then there is Brahmins, there is Vaishyas, there is Kshatriyas, and then there is Shudras. Okay, these are the four categories. Vaishyas are your traders, Kshatriyas are your warriors, and Shudras are the bottom most of the social hierarchy. And this is a predominant practice within the Hindu religion, although caste is practiced across other religions too, but this category is specifically from the Hindu religion because it is believed that Vishnu, the god of the god of the gods, um, and from his part of the body, like from the head came the Brahmins, from the shoulder came the warriors, from the thigh came the traders, and from his foot came the Shudras. The Shudras are the bottommost of the caste hierarchy, and there is one that is outside of these four, and they are called the untouchables. They are lower even
Literally?
than, yes, literally.
Wow.
Untouchability is still practiced in India. So this is your caste. Now there are lower caste people who are upper class. There are upper caste people who are pretty lower class, like I was. We didn't have a lot of money, so there are all kinds of combination, and money often trumps every other social evil. Obviously, if you
Yeah.
have money, you can get away with a majority of things, but there are certain privileges that caste gives you. Like you walk into a room, you can sense the difference in the way they treat you. And say if you walk in with your friend, a sister who's not from the same caste as you can feel the difference. It's palpable. So that's basically like a very broad explanation to what it is.
Yeah. Thank you.
um, I because I grew up in an upper caste. I did not understand the reality of what it is like to be a woman from this marginalized caste until I started understanding the social inequities of the world, of our country, of everything that was going around me. There are a lot of people that condemn affirmative actions for people belonging to the marginalized communities, and these are mostly people belonging to the upper caste. They don't want reservation because they believe that we no longer oppress them. But the kind of oppression that we're talking about, it dates back to centuries, where there is a certain gene pool of people that are born with deficiencies. Okay, because they did not have those things, their forefathers did not have those things, so they genetically passed on, and the children that came over from that gene pool is born with depravity.
Oh wow. Yeah.
How can you undo something so grave by pretending today? Well, it's like saying I had my meal today, so world hunger doesn't exist. It's like that, right? It's really bizarre and stupid. It's
Yeah.
ignorant. It's fucking
Blind.
arrogant.
Yeah.
Yes. So I mean, so it took me some time to understand this, and my
Yeah.
understanding right now is absolutely clear as to what my position is in my society, what I can do, cannot do, what I should do, shouldn't do. I know that, I understand that very well. But I came here after a lot of introspection and learning and listening to other
Yeah.
women. That's very, very important. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
something sometimes we lack in the movement. When to shut up, when to let somebody else talk and listen. That's, I think, very important. And
Huge. It's huge.
it is, yeah. But if we do that, and if we consciously do that, I think it will help our movement greatly.
Oh yeah. How rare do you think your stance where you are and what you believe and just what you do is for women in your country? Like, I mean, you seem like an anomaly, like just a rare gem. Do you are there other women that you know? Like, how is your safety? I don't know. I have so many questions. It's just like, what does that feel like? Like, I don't know. Knowing how, I guess, I don't want to use the word rebellious, but not going along with the societal norm and really speaking out and doing what you're doing. I just don't know how it affects you in your personal life. Maybe COVID's helping you. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is pretty lonely. It affects you everywhere. It affects you in personal life, professional life, romantic life. It affects you in
Yeah.
every aspect of your life. It's not possible for me to fall in love very easily. To
Yeah.
just give you like a crude example, because I cannot. I find 100 million faults in a person because of my politics right now. And that's okay. And I will live with it. It's okay to be lonely and alone, and it's okay. But there are so many different little things that you sort of go through in a daily life, and that things that you take for granted when you were in denial of all these things, in denial of the realities of the world.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore. You can't speak to a family member who supports a government that is misogynistic. Little things. I will block that person. I will yell at that person regardless of what his age is. I will call him horrible words, horrible names. I don't care. I don't want his respect. I want to be able to speak my truth. So yeah, I mean, you end up picking a lot of fights, having a lot of enemies, very, very, very little, but fucking amazing friends. Um, you
Yeah.
get by. What do you do? What can you do? Think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You just get by, and until the day you die, you live, and whatever.
Yep.
That's just how my outlook to life has been. It's been like this for years now.
Yeah, it is definitely a lonely road, and it's not easy losing friends. I lost my best friend. I mean, we all have our stories. People losing friends when they're like a 60-year-old person that they've known for like 40 years. It doesn't ever get easier, obviously. But I did drop my. God, it's just so funny how I always bring her up. It's always relevant. She was okay with. I tagged her in a Twitter thing of California signed some deal or passed it or is going to be enacted January 1st to, allow men into women's prisons. And I just really wanted to hear her speak because I'm open to, I want the conversation. So I tagged her in it, not to be like, what do you think? But I was just like, what do you think? Like, I want to understand. She sent me a DM and was like, I don't know how to use Twitter. And just, I don't know. I was so embarrassed. It's just so shameful. I'm just shocking. And I was like, this is a personal boundary for me and myself. You're a female and you're not helping yourself out and you're not helping me out as a woman. I cannot do this friendship thing with you. Like, number one, it was very one-sided. She got to say what she wanted to say, but my stuff that I wanted to say was not allowed or transphobic, whatever that crap is. So I'm like, I also can't do this one-sided friendship thing. And I asked my Facebook peeps, like, what is friendship to you? What does friendship look like? What is important to you in friendship? It's one of those things where I knew what my answer was going to be to this person, but I just, I guess I like to hear what people think what a friendship is, and if it lines up with what my idea is. And I was like, yep, it's obviously confirmed what I already knew, and this is not what I'm saying in this quote friendship. And it just made me obviously sad. She's a teacher, so I think it's teachers fall into this of wanting to be accepting, or I don't know. I feel like really mistake it with the gay rights thing, or just it's just like smoke and mirrors and trickery. They've literally latched their claws onto the LGB and all the years they've done their thing, and I think that everyone thinks it's that, like, straight up. They use the same
like
flag.
The residual guilt of being oppressive but it's not the same. They know it.
Oh,
they
no,
don't
it's
wanna
not the
admit
same.
it. Yeah.
I just think they're too. I don't know if it's lazy or they don't want to go against. First of all, it's already bred into them, or anyone that goes along with it. If you question a singular part of it or any of it, you're therefore a bigot. And even putting your mind there and being a critical thinker, you're a bad person. So it's just such a cultic thing of like, you have to think this way, you have to use these pronouns, you have to lie
Or
to
else.
me, and you have to lie. Yeah, exactly, or else. It's obviously so unfortunate that people don't see all the red flags and how brainwashy. It's just like, you really think out of the blue, like, this is real, or this has been going on for decades, like the tipping point. What tipping point? From what? What are you talking about? This is like, I know it's kind of been implemented, kind of, I don't know when it officially started, but I've heard a lot around 2011. But I'm like, okay, so what? They just make it sound like it's been going on since, and then, they try to rewrite history and say, like, I don't know, crazy shit like Helen Keller was trans, or just anyone is trans. It's like literally making up bullshit. Like, I don't know. Yeah, rewriting history and making it, because their ideology already is so fantasy land. They make anything. I just believe it. Even there's like transsexuals that I follow on Twitter where I'm like, what is this? It's a, man pretending to be a woman. And he has all these followers and people like his posts. And I'm like, see some of his stuff that he posts, and I'm just questioning him and his ideology, and he gets all mad and is like, well, you can unfollow me. I'm not being harsh or mean or anything. I'm just like, I just don't believe in living a life of a lie, even on like in a light way of, well, I'm not using women's bathrooms. I'm not speaking, that's what he said, but if this is what, there's no like trans light. Like, I do it a little bit and it's okay. Like, it's not okay. Like, if anything, it's really not okay to that person's self. Like, you're not being true to yourself. It's not real. And I don't believe living a life of a lie like that helps the person out to be a well-rounded person, because you're lying to yourself. You're lying to everyone around you. I think that That's not good. Like, it just doesn't make someone I'm not sure what the word is, like well-rounded or just like at peace with themselves. You read these people that are currently trans being so upset with like, why isn't this working, and why am I being misgendered, and like, what's wrong? I thought this surgery would make it so I'm not being misgendered, correctly gendering or correctly sexing someone. It just makes me sad because it's like you're not gonna solve this shit by chopping off pieces. And I've heard Tom. I know this is a tangent. It's always tangenty, but say they are like hyper focus of women wanting to chop off their breast, double mastectomy, and I've heard it time and again of they're hyper focusing on that, and they have hatred towards that, and then they remove that, and then they start hyper focusing on their hips. Like, just it's never ending. It's never gonna end, especially when your life is your body, and your concern about your life is just so physical and like outwardly. It's like, let's start again. This, as we all know, fix like what's going on up here inside the brain that is part of the body that's making you think these things. It's just, it's not bad if people have mental illnesses, or it's whatever you want to call it. That doesn't mean they're bad people. I've had depression and I have triggers or whatever. It's just like, that's just normal to me for people to be messed up or have trauma, or and a lot of this dissociate or body dissociation is just fleeing from trauma. I've seen it time and again. I think from what I've seen, and most all of it is wanting to flee from physical abuse or trauma of some sort, because it makes too much sense. Like, of course you want to escape your body that is directly associated with being raped or physically abused or whatever. Like, and that just, it makes me sad. Like,
Yeah. Even I wish that, nobody, regardless of what their age is, whether they're underage or whether they're an adult, I wish, I wish nobody would do anything to their body at all.
yeah.
Be it cosmetic, be it trans surgery. I wish nobody would do anything at all to their body. I wish we lived in a world where those changes are not going to be the harbingers of happiness.
Yeah.
I wish we don't bother about it at all. We somehow found happiness in things outside of our bodies or something like that. It breaks my heart to now after having finished making this film and having a lot of time with myself, with my head.
Mm-hmm.
I just really wish nobody would do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether
Same.
you believe that you're in the opposite sex or the same sex. It doesn't matter. I I would like it if we move on to this world where we don't have to do that. That will be
Right.
nice. That will be a nice precedent, where we're not
Mm-hmm.
focusing on the body at all. If it does provide them distress and how it causes them agony, that is something that we definitely need to address.
Mm-hmm.
But addressing it in a way where we are not focusing on the body but on the mind, I would like that. And I
Me too.
would really like for younger girls to believe that there is such a potential to work with a professional, understand what's going on with your body, and make absolutely no changes to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe get more boyish, maybe get more boisterous,
Mm-hmm.
maybe want to have masculine hobbies or whatever the hell that is. Do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Climb a tree, you
Mm-hmm.
know, skinny dip into a river. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things one should aspire for. And I really just dream of a time like that, where
Yeah.
regardless of your age, you're just happy in your skin, man. Wouldn't that
Yeah.
be just perfect?
Mm-hmm. You're born the way you are, and that's enough.
Yeah, I
Don't need to
guess.
change that. Well, I guess that's all for now. It's been such a treat. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there any social media links or websites you want to drop? Let us know now.
Okay, so my film Dysphoric is available on YouTube. Um, Basically, it's a bit.ly link. So you type bit.ly/dysphoric21. 21 is the year it was released, 2021. So you type that, and my entire playlist comes on. It's in 4 parts. You can watch that, or you can go to my website, which is limesodafilms.com, and the film is over there as well. And if you enter my name on Google and type cancel, you'll get all kinds of information about me as well. So that's that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you
I
for
super
having me.
appreciate you coming on. It's been fantastic. I love your work, and I can't wait to see what other things you do. Do you have any? Is that? I forgot to ask you that. Are you working on something? Are you allowed to say?
Not anything concrete at the moment, but there are a bunch of ideas, and I'm very excited. The momentum that this film has given me has strengthened my conviction, to continue to raise voice about this, and to just try and find innovative ways to get through to people. Now that's kind of becoming my obsession now. So what can I say, and in what way can I say a thing that's going to go get through to you? It's like
Yes.
I want to try different things and see where we land. And if we have some mind shifts because of our art, I think that's the reward we're all going after, right?
Yes. Yep. Keep going. Keep on trucking. Do not
Yeah.
stop. Keep doing your thing. All
Yep.
right. Well, until next time, people.